This episode of the AskPiesNation podcast is brought to you by Swish Personalised Videos. Great to have them on board in 2024. Give the Collingwood fan in your life the ultimate surprise, whether that is for a birthday, for sledging even, or just a massive celebration. Swish will have you covered with one of the best gifts you can buy for your loved one. And boys, fantastic to have Swish on board for season 2025. And I'm sure there are plenty of video ideas for many of your mates that you can already start to think of.
For sure, Nico. Last year, I was a recipient on my birthday of a Swish video from one Matt Owies, which was fantastic. So great to have Swish on board this year as a partner for the AskPiesNation pod, Marcus.
You don't mean that.
Maybe not, but yeah.
No, great to have Switch on board, Nico. Season 2025.
You can get many stars like Nick Dacos or Scott Pendlebury at the click of a button. And for all our listeners and viewers of the AskPiesNation podcast, get this, 10% off if you use the code word AskPiesNation for any of your videos. So don't waste any time. A lot of big milestones coming up, I'm sure, for all your friends and family. So make sure you head to swish.com. AskPiesNation is the code word you need to get 10% off your video. So thanks again to Swish for sponsoring our podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AskPiesNation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Nicholas Sacco here again, your host for the second episode of Season 7, or episode 175, if you are counting from the beginning. But it was another disappointing showing against the Giants during opening round. We suffered our largest loss to GWS in our club history with a 52-point defeat. And whilst we are only one game down, it appears, at least initially, there are some big differences, well, in fact, little differences between 2024 and 2025. We get stuck into the season. Unwrap why Sunday just didn't go our way. See if this is just a blip in the road or something much deeper thanks to AskPiesNation. Plus, we have the return of some of our great segments, the Fan Award with our votes, and of course, our Guess the Crowd competition. Now, got two lovely men in my company for this episode. I'm going to start with a debutant for season 7. That is Marcus Callahan. Welcome back.
Thank you, Nico. Great to be back in Collingwood, of course.
And literally just off the plane from Sydney after watching the Pies take to the field yesterday, it's Jack Dugan.
Nico, I'm here. I'm alive. Got through. In a bit of pain at the moment, but looking forward to a bit of AskPiesNation therapy on this fine Monday evening.
Now, we'll get to your Sydney trip in a minute, Jack, but Marcus, haven't seen you much over the summer, so I thought it'd be nice to just have a quick check-in from you, see how things were. Did you get up to anything exciting over the last few months?
I've got to say, it's one of the quietest summers I've had in recent memory, Nico, so not a whole lot to report on, but just as it got to sort of late January, I really noticed myself starting to get that need for the football fix. So fantastic to finally be back in the studio and to be doing this once again. Great to hear you fellas last week sort of tell us a bit about what you're looking forward to this season, and now to be back in the chair. And thanks to our good people at Swish keeping us going. And of course to Derek, it's just really fantastic to be back for season 2025. Probably a little bit less excited than had I been here this time last week, but it's one game and we will move on and we'll dissect all of it today.
Well, I think we used the word excited about 20 times last week, Jack. I don't think that's going to get much of a run in this episode, unfortunately, due to our defeats yesterday. But just to give us a bit of an insight before we get to the part that caught your eye, Jack, you were there live at Giant Stadium, or whatever the hell it's called now, but definitely an interesting vibe, I'm sure, being there in person. Give us a quick summary of how you saw it from your end.
It was interesting, to say at the least. Good weekend, it's got to be said, all out. Shout out to my mate Liam and Claire for having me over the course of the weekend. It was really good. Got to go do all the touristy stuff on Saturday and into Sunday's game, where we were up and about until probably about this time yesterday, where the mood changed a little bit. But walking into the game, lots of Collingwood supporters everywhere. Great to see. We love that. It's like going to play an away game in another city, which is really cool. And yeah, Giants started pretty hot. We looked like we were keeping up with them and just couldn't quite nail our opportunities in front of goal. And then, yeah, sort of they pulled away again, and then we thought we were with them at halftime, really. And then, yeah, the game was blown apart in the third quarter. And, yeah, all the things that were going wrong seemed to be getting really amplified. And that was a consistent theme for the rest of the game. It was no good, but it was hard to. There was probably no, from a just crowd and vibe perspective, there was probably not that many opportunities for the crowd to get involved. There was a little bit of a Collingwood chant in the last quarter. I think the last 2 years have given a lot of the supporters some blind optimism and stuff, considering some of the things we've witnessed. But not to be yesterday, unfortunately, and looking forward to unpacking it with you boys.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough watch, that's for sure. At least sitting at home, you and I, Marcus, and so much hope and anticipation about what the season was going to bring us. And look, I don't think we played that badly, at least not what the scoreboard showed us by the end of the afternoon. But there were certainly a lot of flaws that were exposed pretty quickly, Marcus.
Yeah, there were. And let's, I think, set the tone for this podcast by saying that GWS Giants were brilliant.
Yes.
They brought the heat. What was it, close to 30 degrees there, Jacko?
Yeah, which is another thing I was going to mention as well. We're expecting the weather all week was meant to be 70 mil of rain, which is, I'm not a farmer, but that's a lot of rain to have in one day. And I think most people would be pretty excited about that if you needed the crops watered. But woke up on Sunday morning, blue skies, no sign of rain at all. Caught a boat to the footy, by the way. That's a new one.
Yeah.
That was really cool part about Sydney. But yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. So look, I don't know how we're going to break this one down statistically, but to come out, whenever a team doubles your score, you've had a bad day at the office. And yes, it's round 0 or whatever the hell we call it. But I just think that GWS brought the heat. They were clearly covering the ground a lot better than us. We'll talk about perhaps some of the reasons why that was the case later in the ep, but it's just not what you want as a fan when you wait for so long for the season to come around and for the wind, pardon the pun here, Jacko, but to be taken out of our sails after one game of footy is leaving a bit to be desired next week.
Yeah, Giants coach Adam Kingsley said he'd bring the pressure and they'd bring the pain, and they certainly did that to a T throughout 4 quarters on Sunday. Okay, for the first time in 2025, let's get to the pie that caught your eye. And Jack, you got to see it firsthand, so it's only fitting that we start this segment with you.
Yeah, well, there was plenty that caught my eye for negative reasons, but we'll keep it positive still. It's only early. It could turn around this week. I've gone with a pretty obvious choice, probably Harry Perryman first. Real crack at it in Pies colours. I thought he was probably, alongside a Darcy Cameron, probably our most consistent performer across the 4 quarters of the day. Seemed to slot in seamlessly within that 22, 23 players, and really excited for his prospects. Again, still only early, but yeah, massive tick to the recruiting department for getting him across to the prize, because he looks like he's going to be an absolute bolter, Marcus.
Yeah, well, just a workhorse. I think I was really impressed. He probably had something to prove against the old mob and all the rest of it, but if we had just 3 or 4 more Perryman-like efforts from other top 5 players in our side, I know there's a lot of cramp going around. Who knows what the result could have been, particularly halfway through that game. But did you have anything else to tack on there?
No, mate. No.
For the Pez man? Okay, great. First pilot caught my eye for season 2025 is Reece McInnes, gents. Now, in terms of performance, probably not one that we're looking at statistically or the way that he killed the ball first time in defence. But I'm just want to mark this as a watch for season 2025, because my understanding of Reece McInnes is he came as potential big body midfielder, didn't get opportunity due to us often having a stacked and very deep midfield, was tried as a third forward, sort of tall forward, and that hasn't really worked against, again, probably starved of opportunity. And it's just interesting to me that we've got Billy Frampton fit, yet we're playing Reece McInnes as a second key defender, really. Jeremy Howe coming across and trying to intercept. So he caught my eye because I don't know if Reece played much defence across his junior career, certainly not in his seniors, as I'm aware. And I just wonder, is this the season where Flyers and the coaching staff have said, we're going to try in a new position, trying to get you some games under your belt, but if it doesn't work in defence, Nico, is it going to work at all for Reece?
Yeah, look, I don't see it working for him if it doesn't in this instance, because you're right, he's been tried in multiple different positions and we know he's a talented player, but unfortunately it feels like he's just giving too much height away for the position he needs to play in that back line, and he got a little bit exposed, and it wasn't just him in that defensive 50, don't get me wrong, and I like Fly being a bit more creative and seeing where he does fit, and I do believe he needs that 5-6 week window at least just to prove his worth and see if it does work out. At the same time, losses building up early in the campaign, as we know, can be detrimental to what your aspirations are in the season ahead. So maybe if there are repeat instances of this performance over the next fortnight, there might have to be a call made on Reece early.
Yeah, and again, had we won the game, I think I have the same pie that caught my eye, just because I feel like across the key pillars of our side, we've got 2 big rucks, we've got 2 big key forwards now, I guess we can say, with Membry supplementing. I feel more comfortable with that. It's just that big guy to go alongside Darcy Moore that I'm just not sure we've got enough pedigree and enough height for that second key back. So if Reef's going to occupy that spot, he looks like a strong guy, and he looks like his body shape's even changed with the work he's done in the off-season. I just hate to see guys clearly got a great attitude, high training standards, has done all the right things, and then gets put key position player in defence without that much time in the seat before. So we'll just have to keep an eye on him. I think he could be an interesting swing man if he plays enough games, but that was the pie that caught my eye to start this season.
I still think Charlie Dean's got a place in the side at some point. I know he didn't have the greatest of years last
Where
year.
is he? Is he
not picked
injured
at the
or
moment.
just not
I don't
picked?
believe he's
Not
injured.
even an emergency?
No.
Okay.
No. So I'm hoping for his sake that he gets another crack at it, because I think he's got the natural defensive ability to play that role.
It's even
Just
more
hasn't-
interesting.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
he just hasn't had the seasons and pre-seasons he would have liked with some injuries interrupted, etc. Now, the pie that caught my eye up until this morning was Ed Allen, and I'm happy to talk about him a little bit later because he definitely deserves some credit. But rewatching the game today and noticing just how slow and stagnant and how cramped up we were in that second half, there was only one player I felt that didn't seem too affected by those cramps and pulling up a bit sore, and that was Bo McCreary. I thought he just stood out purely on the fact that he was able to run along with Giants players throughout the entire 4 quarters and not just pull up sore a little bit earlier on. Ended up with a Collingwood high of 4 tackles, which isn't great and something else we need to talk about.
Jeez.
We had our lowest tackle count, I think, in nearly 4 years, by the way. So he had an equal Collingwood high of 4 on Sunday. But my campaign here for Bo is that he only attended the centre bounce on 4 occasions. It's clear that we needed a bit of grunt and a bit of speed in those stoppage situations. I wouldn't mind seeing Bo get a little bit more of a run in the midfield. I feel like he's capable of it, and I think if we're going to be creative, as Fly is doing with Reef in the back line, then why not have McCreary in those situations, particularly still with Jordan De Goey and Tom Mitchell not in this team. We need someone to be a bit of a bull and have that contested presence about him. Now, his disposal is probably my big query about how that would work, because we know that he's probably someone that does fumble it more than others because he puts himself in those situations, of course. But at the same time, we know he can tackle, we know he can chase, we know he can win the footy in those situations. I wouldn't mind seeing him have a bit more of a go. So purely by catching my eye, because he was one of the fittest guys in a Collingwood jumper by the end of the afternoon, I think there's some potential to see him tried in a bit more of a different situation.
Yeah, and as you said, Nico, this would have been the perfect opportunity in a game that we're lacking pressure around the ball to get someone like Bo in and around the contest. A hard day for him to get involved from the front half of the ground when it's not really spending that much time down there. So I love that call from you to get him in the middle and get him involved, because if we had about 3 or 4 more Bo McCrearys yesterday and maybe a couple more Braden Maynards, it would have been pretty nice.
Well, in that scratch match we played against Brisbane and Gold Coast a couple of weeks back, he played in the second half against Gold Coast entirely in the midfield. He had 8 tackles. And I know that, again, it's a practice match, a very small sample size, as I've mentioned before, but there is growth potential for him to be in that position, I feel. And he won't be so reliant as to winning clearances, because we've got players that can do that and are capable of it, Marcus. But I just feel like he can be a bit more utilised. He can grow his confidence a little bit more. And I'd rather a Bo be in those centre bounce stoppages rather than someone like a Bobby Hill or Jamie Elliott, who I trust more in front of the big sticks.
Yeah, sure. And Billy did attend a lot more stoppages
Yep.
and played through the midfield perhaps more than I expected. As to why he got the nod ahead of Bo is, again, interesting to me, because I think Bo brings youth into the midfield, and we have little of that, particularly when Nick's cramping and out of action. So across the course of the year, I know that Tommy Mitchell and Jordan De Goey are going to be playing catch-up this year,
Yep.
and that's a really unfortunate aspect that they have to accept. But as far as the coaches, like if Geordie comes in, has a few good games, then the groin goes, and then same for Tommy, and then like the foot starts stirring up again, and there's no continuity in their game and what they can provide for the midfield, bearing in mind they are getting, well, not less so Geordie, but towards the tail end of their career. I think Bo is a guy that we might have to say, okay, Bo, we don't care if you don't kick the ball forward, as long as you're getting a hand on another midfielder, you're doing your job when you get a few minutes to rotate through the guts because, I mean, take nothing away from the Giants, but they were just walking it out of the middle. So it felt in that second half. So we're going to have to clean that up. I'm sure we won't see a repeat against the Power, but it's certainly a watch, and I like him as an option.
Yeah, well, let's chat more about our game as a whole because it seemed like there was no hope for us, probably from halftime onwards, with just the fact that we were pulling up so quickly. A lot of attention, of course, on Nick Dacos with his cramping issues. Bobby Hill was another one that suffered a bit. Ended up subbing Will Hoskin-Elliott, which I think was another story in this entire match, which I'm sure we'll discuss. But it did look, from the outside at least, that we were pretty unfit compared to a younger, stronger, speedier GWS side. And I think that has to be a little bit of a concern that needs to be taken into the next couple of weeks. And I know that GWS probably started a little bit slow as well. We had our opportunities in front of goal, but as soon as they put their pressure up, we just collapsed and we could not keep up with them whatsoever. Ended up having a pressure high rating of 213 in that third quarter. Now, I know that there are stats to suggest that we were still in the game in that moment, particularly with the fact that we had 20 inside 50s during the third quarter and were unable to register a goal. But what was apparent about this game for me was with GWS putting their pressure up so high and us being unable to win the ball cleanly or make proper decisions. In hindsight, this was a game we were never going to win, gentlemen.
No way. Not with that pressure and intensity around the ball brought by GWS. And Marcus has already highlighted off the top of the show how good they were. And we can't forget that they came to this game prepared. They came to this game hungry, and they absolutely nailed us and ran us off our legs all day. In my opinion, we can analyse structures and personnel until the cows come home. But the number one thing you always look for in the first quarter of the footy is when the tone of the game is being set, and it's always back down to pressure. And I felt like when you get presented with as much pressure as what GWS did to us, the only answer is to try and up it and go back the other way, and which has been our one wood. Every time we've spoken about this Craig McRae Collingwood team over the last three or so years, the first thing that anyone ever says is their pressure was amazing. And then all the other things seem to follow suit. They're moving the ball well from half-back flank, so on and so forth. And we just weren't there. And there was too many... Passengers is probably a harder word, and I've said this on the pod before, but when you buy into this, when you want to be a pressure team, it's a one-in, all-in approach. You can't... There's no... Just because you might play on a wing or you might play on the half-back flank and you might be an attacking defender. No, that's not how that works. Every single bloke who had a GWS jumper on the weekend bought into a hungry pressure and just intense game plan on Sunday afternoon, and it put us on the back foot. And there's no way we're going to be able to catch up, apart from laying pressure of our own, but there's just too many people that unfortunately weren't prepared to do that.
So why couldn't we bring a similar level of pressure throughout Sunday? Is it a fitness issue? Is it a structure issue? What's the difference here? Because to me, similar amount of time in terms of a pre-season, really strong showing against Richmond the week before, so much has changed.
Yeah, a lot in 1 week. I think the weather point, because the forecast was predicting kind of rain throughout the week, and then we got hot, humid conditions. Is GWS a little bit more comfortable on that deck, being a hard deck, perhaps? But there's a clear age gap there across both sides.
4 years of difference, I think.
There you go. Thank you. And I don't know how much that played into it, but once again, just because our team is growing older, I still don't believe that this margin and how much we lost control of the game due to effort and intent is a reflection of age alone or fitness, really, because how can we look so dominant the week prior against Richmond? I get that, and this is for points, very different context, but it was just as if too many players fell away throughout the match, and I'm not sure if we'll see our players cramp as much as they did yesterday again this season, maybe if we go up to Brizzy. So there's a bit of rust there, and so it's difficult to try and deduce down to what it is after one match, Nico. If we continue to show up and the effort levels are clearly less than our oppositions. I mean, 20 less tackles. Like, how many times have we done that in the last few years? It's as if this is one of those matches where the Giants beat us at our own game, or the game that we know we can play. So I'm not here to try and say this is why, because I don't think it's enough of a sample size, but it's a huge watch, and I think it's caught us all by surprise, the fact that it was such a gap in performance.
Especially because this time last year we hadn't the excuse book out, but there almost seemed to be reasons why we perhaps looked a bit underdone. Shortest off season in the history of the club almost, going into a white hot team in GWS on their home deck, and then the injury started. But for me now, I'm even more worried. It is round 0, we're not even at round 1 yet, but if this trend keeps appearing, Nico, I can't see how we improve on last year's record, and we're finishing outside the top 8, because it's not down to what we thought it was, and it could be down to something else. Is it again, round 0? It could all change this week, but it almost seems like sometimes when you sat there at the footy, it almost kind of seems like an attitude thing sometimes. And obviously sitting outside the 4 walls, I'm only guessing from row Z and what would I know, but it sometimes seems like that, because when you watch blokes running past and players just dropping their heads and giving up, it's like, well, okay, well, what are we doing here now? Again, that's in the 3rd, 4th quarter, on a deck that's 30 degrees against a side that's running you off your legs all day. I get it. It's one of the most brutal sports in the world, but yeah, geez, it was getting me frustrated a lot, and I certainly wasn't alone.
Yeah, frustrating. I think Marcus made a good point about us being beaten by our own game. The Giants kicked 3 goals from kick-ins on Sunday, which is an unheard of number. I think you'd be lucky to get half a goal kicked. But yeah, other than that, it was really disappointing to see how easy it was for them to transition from defence to attack. You mentioned the tackle count, failed to hit 40 tackles in a game for the first time since 2021 back in round 20, and we all know how that season panned out. There were a few other aspects of this game that really did concern me. It was spoken about pre-game that there was a bit of a deliberate approach from us to be a bit more patient when going inside 50, knowing that we had some taller timber in that attacking half, and we exhibited this a little bit against Richmond, where there were just short kicks around that 50 to 70 metre area before we were able to hit somebody up, lace up. And it worked to a T against, mind you, a really young and probably not as skilled Richmond defence. But the problem that we found on Sunday was not only GWS's ability to get so many numbers into their defensive 50, combine that with the pressure they brought onto us from pretty much the second quarter. We reverted to our great old strategy of just bombing the ball inside 50 and hoping like hell that somebody could grab a mark. And then, of course, they wouldn't grab a mark because of the weight of numbers. The weight of numbers are also at ground level, which allowed GWS defenders to get it out of their defensive 50 with ease. And not only that, we couldn't find any space. The leads weren't forthcoming. So it builds and builds and builds, and that's probably where the fatigue hit us maybe earlier than it would have if we had a bit more structure, a bit more care with the football going inside 50. It worked so well a week before, but as soon as that pressure came to us and it was taken out of our hands, we had no answers, gentlemen.
For sure, and I felt that not only structurally, but at the drop of the ball, the number of times at a stoppage, it was like, okay, cool, there's 7 orange jumpers and there's 3 Collingwood jumpers. Almost every time one of those is Pendles. He's just trying to do everything that he can. But yeah, I just felt like their top 5 or top 6 players were, and some of their probably top 10 players were absolutely on and were all in. And we had a lot of passengers, particularly from the top end of our talent pool. And if you think about Hogan, Tom Green, and dare I say it, Jake Stringer not playing in this game and their ruckman going down, like that was the piece that really got me. It was a bit of an arm wrestle until Kieran Briggs unfortunately went down, of course, but you got to take what you can get. And when there's a weakness shown by the opposition due to their ruckman exiting the match, I mean, Lockie Keefe, take a bow. Like, he really did hold his own in the ruck there. And with one less tall at the Giants end, I thought that was another thing we could potentially expose. But they ran us off our feet, and they were just there for handball chains and overlap run. And I think we just lost interest, unfortunately, due to the conditions by the 4th quarter. But the game was well and truly done by then, Nico. It was just unfortunate, while it was an arm wrestle, that they used aspects of what we've grown to know about the pressure pies against us. That's what I saw.
Well, Darcy Cameron did his job, despite the fact that whether it was Briggs or Keefe that he was going up against, he ended up being our best player on the ground. So he can hold his head up high, but that is the reality, Marcus. We weren't able to take our chances as shown in front of goal, gentlemen, because the reality was we had such an accurate session against the Tigers, could not convert against GWS. However, I'll bring this to you because we've just mentioned so many factors why we didn't look like we were going to win from the outset. Maybe even if we had have kicked straight in that first half, Jack, it might not have seemed like the momentum was going to be built high enough for us to get over the top of the Giants anyway.
Yeah, the inaccuracy one is a funky one for me because you look at the shots that we took. There's probably only one. The shoot and miss was
Yeah, we'll get to that.
was average, and I think there was one where if you're going to be a side that competes, you got to rely on a bit of for a flag. There's going to be some individual brilliance, and there was a couple of moments like Will Hoskin Elliott, Perryman having a snapshot that I think they both would nail more often than not, but because we found ourselves in this rut for whatever reason, they just couldn't quite pin the ears back. But yeah, that was an interesting one. Nick, yeah, mate, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how much you read into something like the inaccuracy because the two sample sizes we've gotten has been absolutely dead eyes or horrible. And I think even if we were accurate, that didn't feel like being at the ground anyway. The inaccuracy for me didn't feel like why we were out of the game. I felt like we were out of the game because we were getting run off our legs in every other facet, and scoring was easier for them. Yep. Because of the way they were moving the ball and the way that they defended and got numbers back. Like it felt like at both ends of the ground, they just had one extra tall down the bookends of the ground, like one extra tall forward, one extra backman. I could not figure out how they were doing it. And then you talk about not leading, Nico. That was like we were defending their defense. Yeah, we weren't attacking at all. The bloke. The amount of times you see someone 70 meters out and it's the last kick before it goes inside 50. And you're just begging for someone to do something and make them chase you away or anything. But yeah, it was just wasn't there on Sunday, unfortunately.
Oh, Sam Taylor seemed to enjoy our inside 50 entries. He had the ball on a string half the time.
Yeah, for sure. But coming back to important moments in the game, I don't think we really appreciated just how on the Giants were till probably late in the first quarter, where they just went bang, bang, bang and got that quarter time lead. Up until then, it was a genuine arm wrestle for me. But talk about moments and the Dan McStay one. I know it was soft with the 50-meter penalty, but as soon as that happened, I'm like, he's going to have a down day. Confidence player, big forward. I just felt it was going to be difficult for him to work into the game. Sure enough, had a very average day. I think it's fair to say. And then coming back to the Lockie Schultz miss the set shot. We're just hanging around at that point in time and just anything that we could get. I think we probably had ascendancy in terms of time in forward half throughout that second term, but I could just feel the momentum shift was going to come later on, and sure enough, he misses, and then they go down and kick a goal.
Yeah, it came at, you're dead right, Marcus. It came at a time, I said, we need this. Like, you've just got to, we're going to stay in this game. These are the sort of opportunities you've just got to take along the way, especially it felt early, like GWS we're on. Probably made a mistake in my match sort of wrap up before, Nico. We did have a fair bit of dominance in the third quarter. Like probably the first 10 minutes of it, we were well and truly in the game. But again, I think we were in the game everywhere but the last 70 metres of goal where if you go back, I haven't gone back and watched it yet, but if you go back and watch it, I think it's struggle street, and it didn't really look like we were ever a chance of putting any kind of scoreboard pressure on. So going to Port Adelaide this week, it's pressure, and it's, sort of being a little bit more dynamic going forward, I think is what we're looking for.
Absolutely. A couple of players just to keep an eye out for. Lockie Schultz, boys, seem to lack a lot of confidence once again on the big stage. You mentioned about a set shot that he wasn't able to convert, dropped a couple of marks. He just still doesn't look like himself in Collingwood colours just yet. Are we eyeing any concerns at this stage?
You can just see in his head, like when he's on the screen, when he gets the ball, he wants to do the right thing and he works bloody hard, not questioning his desire to try and chase guys down or get the footy back for it. But when he gets it, like there was just another moment where he gave off a really short handball in the third term and it was just way too fast and hard. It just needed to be, I don't even know if it was really on. It was just another moment where I'm like, what's going on mentally for this player, that it just seems like there's a bit of a moz on him and he knows it. And to get that off, he's really going to have a string of good performances, not only in front of goal, but where he's collecting high disposal counts, putting tackles on and working into a forward line that is stacked. I think we mentioned this a lot last year. It's hard. At Freo, he was the guy, the small forward, along maybe Michael Walters, to really own that position. But here he's probably had to fit in. And now with Membry coming in again, like the dynamics change. It's going to take a bit of time, but I'm just probably, a lot to be desired there with his performances up until now.
Yeah, for sure. I think, look, again, not inside the four walls, so what would we know? But I think for Shooter, it's now just trying to simplify things, and whatever it is to try and take away, this complicatedness of structure and where he fits in and stuff. Maybe just task him up with something really simple and build on from there. I know that can work for a lot of different athletes. Might be the other way. Might be give him more jobs to do or something like that. Not sure.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not going to be the one to solve that problem. But yeah, it just seems like sometimes we love his effort. And I love his run and chase. He was one bloke on the weekend that you never looked at who looked like he dropped his head. However, sometimes it feels like with the ball he's trying to do maybe a little bit too much. Perfect example, as Marcus highlighted with that.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do.
That just went off someone's back and then turned over. Yeah,
and there's just no need for it. There was no need to go quickly in that moment.
It could have been a chain. Like there was two guys either side of him. He just kind of dished it off quickly. And I think that's also the Giants' pressure. Leading to perceived pressure, perhaps. So again, take nothing away from them, and I'm sure there's probably 30 other examples of where that happened in the game because our turnover count was way too high. Yes. But with Schultz, I think he's probably one that is acutely aware himself that things need to improve. It's just going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. But I'm backing him in for a big game against Port.
I said off the top of the show I wanted to mention Ed Allen. I think third or fourth senior game. Getting that opportunity against the Giants. I thought he was brilliant, and his run and carry was also something that caught our eyes, particularly with how much fresher he looked compared to many of our other players by the end of the game. Finished with 19 disposals, 3 clearances, 4 inside 50s, 5 score involvements. It looks like he's got a place in this side, at least for the short-term, Jack.
Yeah, absolutely, Nico. And you boys just spoke about it before about, midfield structures and, Reef coming into a midfield where, perhaps like it's stacked and he can't get into it. And, hats off to Ed Allen for at this stage in his career, which is very early, probably still developing up a seasoned AFL body to go in there and show the strength and show his run, I thought was immense. It showed signs late last year in that game against Melbourne of being a bit of a prospect, but you don't know how much you can take out of those games. But exceptional work by him has clearly gone away in the summer and put the work in. And he's come back fitter and stronger. And I reckon he can be a real asset for us in an area of the ground where we need it.
No doubt about it. I think I look at Ed Allen as a guy that's going to be very interesting to watch alongside Nick Dacos over the next 10 years. I genuinely think, given his father was a gun for Adelaide, I believe. Freo. He's got the pedigree, and there's no doubt that he's got the skills. It's just a case of building up the frame and getting that confidence under the belt. But he'll go from strength to strength, and hopefully he's that guy that can have a breakout year. Last year, Harvey Harrison was cut short, but I've hoped that Ed Allen can be that guy, a bit like Harves last year.
Last play before I get your final thoughts, gents, was Ned Long, who was our sub, came on for Will Hoskin-Elliott in that third term. With 26% game time, he finished with 9 touches, 3 tackles, 4 inside 50s and 3 score involvements. So I'll ask a similar question about what Ned Long's place in the side looks like in the next few weeks, because he seemed to be promising, or it could have just been, again, the fact that he was fresh legs coming into a side that looked pretty much spent.
Yeah, well, similar sentiments from me, really. Ned and Ed, regarding those two boys. He looked like he came on and had strength. Now, look, the GWS players didn't look like they wavered at any stage during the day, but he did come on sort of that late third term, fourth term, and he was breaking tackles left, right and centre. It looked amazing. It looked to be sort of something that we'd been missing across the whole day. His place in the side, though, is an interesting one. My friend Liam had a great point. Do we like a Ned Long type player as the sub, or are we better off having someone like a Markov, who I know was injured, who can provide that sort of run and dash? So where do we sit with that? Because it's an interesting because if you're trying to, the idea of the sub is to get fresh legs on who can break a game apart. Does a Ned Long do that long term? Pardon the pun. Like he's just like bringing on another midfielder.
Yeah, get it.
So I feel I'd much rather see a Ned Long start in the side somehow. Where we can't fit him, we'll need to start asking the AFL if we can have 25 on the list every week. But yeah, it's just an interesting one for me because I think we'd rather see like an exciting dashing game breaker player come on who can provide something different as opposed to replacing potentially like for like.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just probably down to form and coming into this match where the coaches wanted to reward effort from what they'd seen in the preseason and in the lead up to. I agree with you in terms of you want someone who can break lines and use their speed or their agility to their advantage when the rest of the players in the game have started to fatigue. So Ned coming in, he's a big lumbering fella. He's not quick. We know that he's there to farm the ball out and throw his weight around, but he looked like he had a bit of speed about him. So I think that tells you a lot about the effects of the game on the players compared to had that game been played in the middle of winter on a chilly night at the G, for example. So does he get that spot week to week? Probably not. Or well, at least I hope he doesn't, because I'm hoping that our midfielders are in a position to run out the game. But yesterday was interesting, so maybe the coaches knew something that they didn't, putting another midfielder as the sub, because, look, he brought some value, but the game was cooked by the time he came on.
It's funny that we're talking about running out games when 2 years ago in this spot, we were talking about how we could have played another 4 quarters against Geelong after beating them in round one.
It's an exceptionally difficult first game of the year to play. Let's not take away from that. Like, had it been 2 years ago, we got up there, hot, humid conditions, do we run out the game a little bit better? Maybe. Are we an aging list? Yes, we are. But I just think that even if it's going to be warm next weekend, which I think we have some warmer weather hanging around at the G, which will be lovely, gentlemen, we'll just look a little bit sharper. I really don't think the fatigue and the humidity factor will be as large. Touch wood.
And Crispy, 250. I forgot to mention it last week, Jack, but what an outstanding achievement. He still had his 19, 20 odd touches. Probably not as influential as he would have liked, but certainly in our better half of players that came off the ground against the Giants. But going deeper than that, we obviously know that he's had an outstanding impact on this Collingwood side since he came across as some lovely steak knives. But what a great celebration for him as well yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. Mr. Consistent. How long until he breaks? Not we. I've got nothing to
I
do
think
with
it
it.
must be like 15
It's
games.
this season.
Yeah.
It'll be this season.
Thereabouts.
Well, that in itself, if something was to happen, touch wood, it doesn't between now and then, he's not able to get that record, that in itself is a remarkable achievement. To get your body right week in, week out, just really speaks to the professionalism of Jack Chris. He's a great leader within our club. Seems quite a funny man, Marcus, on the socials. I don't know if you've seen that. He's quite good at
He's good friends with Nick
razzing the
Dacos.
boys up. Yeah, I reckon, Nick Dacos have some tight muscles around that bloke. But no, he was awesome. It was actually on my flight home today, Nico.
All right.
Yeah, so obviously elected to spend a bit more time with the fam. But yeah, if you're
Didn't wanna
listening,
say
Crispy,
hello, or-
shout out. No, I thought I'd let him be. But if you're listening, mate, congratulations on 250. And yeah, you've been an absolute fantastic servant for our football club so far.
And more importantly, he was our very first guest
He was.
Yep.
over the blower.
Episode 4, Season 1, first guest.
Forget as well, probably one of the most underrated performers from that grand final a couple of years ago.
That's that shot.
2 very handy goals at crucial times in the game from tough spots, was good all day. Very, very underrated game.
One best finals player that
Yep.
series. So just goes to show how immense he has been. So well done to Crispy 250. Can't wait till you break the consecutive games record. All right, gents, votes from this one against the Giants. Not a great 3 to pick from, I would think, but let's see how you went, Jack.
Well, great segue into this. I've given 1 to Crispy, 250 games. I thought just the eye test on the day without looking at the stats. I thought he seemed to be a bloke that, all day just kept putting his head over the ball, kept running and chasing on a day where we were doing lots of running and chasing. So he gets my 1, gave 2 to Perryman for the reasons highlighted in the pile that caught my eye. Seems to have slotted in very nicely, and gave my 3 to Darcy Cameron. I think he was our highest rated player on the ground, potentially even in fantasy points, highest rated player on the ground, which is super impressive. He was one that I was really interested to see how he would go this year, because I think, I don't know if it was a breakout year for him last year, but certainly probably his career best year.
Yep.
And how he would go backing that up. Really super impressed with his efforts, and hopefully we see more of that in season 2025. Marcus.
Thank you very much, Jack. I've gone the 1 vote to Crispy as well, similar to your votes. Happy 250th. I was really finding it difficult to get 3 players in today, I must be honest. 2 votes I've gone with Darcy Cameron and 3 votes to Harry Perryman, who I know probably fell away like a lot of other guys in this game, but up until the point where I felt like we were competitive and at least providing some sort of response, I thought he can hold his head high. I'm really looking forward to him throughout the remainder of this season, Nico.
Gave Ed Allen 1 just to change it up. Thought he was deserving of a vote. At least he was probably one of our more consistent players for the afternoon. And then very similar to you, gents, I gave 2 to Darcy Cameron, 3 to Harry Perryman. Don't know if you heard us last week, Marcus, but apparently Perryman's a very good fisher, and that could have been a sign of things to come in 2025. And maybe he caught something on the weekend, Jack.
Well, potentially. Yeah, potentially. Not many fish getting caught around Sydney Harbour, though. That's for sure. There was lots of fishermen, but not many fish getting caught. So maybe they just need a bit of Harry Perryman action. I'm not sure. It's actually in my algorithm at the moment on my socials. A lot of people like sort of fish in around the Sydney Harbour Bridge, kingfish, sharks you can get out of there, Nico. So, geez, I'm really going a bit nerdy here.
No, well, we're going to keep going because we need to talk about what you sent us the other day in our group chat regarding your theory about us winning the flag.
Oh, yeah.
From
yeah,
the Western Port
call.
Angling Club.
Yeah. Do we want to go to it now?
Go on.
So, Western Port Angling Club lives on the lovely town of Hastings down on the Mornington Peninsula, boys. Yes. And a couple of years ago, we still do it. It'll be an annual thing the weekend after grand final weekend. But we ran a fishing comp for one of my friends that passed away, and we ran it out of Western Port, and someone had caught a kilo whiting. So a kilo whiting is like any fisherman out there will know that's really big whiting. And
Harry Perryman would know that.
Yeah, he would know that.
Yeah.
And a kilo is huge. And the last time a kilo whiting was caught and weighed officially at the Western Port Angling Club was 2010. And then the next time it happened when we ran the fishing comp was 2023.
Where are you going with this?
So it's a formality now because they had their annual whiting competition a couple of weeks ago. And I'm not sure what the bloke's name is, Nico, if you've got it there or not, has caught a 1.6 kilo whiting, which means that
D. Rowe, was it?
Yeah. Or
Samuel Rowe.
S. Rowe.
Yeah, 3 votes, S. Rowe, because, you know, even though we've just lost to the Giants by 50 points and really looked nowhere about 24 hours ago, because Sam Rowe caught that whiting, put your house on it, Collingwood will win the flag in 2025.
Okay, so as those odds start to change with some of the betting companies, you can just go back to that photo and know that we are good.
Well, now, as soon as this goes live out tonight, Sportsbet are going to inundate with. We're going to go in from, I don't know where we are now, probably about $50, but we're going to go in from $50 into like $1.01, and they're going to be like, where's everyone getting this mail from? And it'll be from the Pies Nation pod. You heard it here first.
Stranger things have happened.
When kilo whitings get caught at Western Port Angling Club, Collingwood win the
premierships.
flag.
That's right.
If we win the flag, we're getting him on for our grand final episode.
Yeah, for sure.
He looks thrilled, by the way, in the photo.
Yeah, looks stoked.
If you get onto our Facebook page. Right, well, let's move on then to our Ask Pies Nation segment, our second running of course for season 2025. We love getting the fans involved, and they were in full voice after our defeat to the Giants on Sunday. So Lukey put out the tweets or the Facebook post or the Instagram post. It was, what on earth happened today? Nothing to see here, and simply move on to the power, or are there bigger issues at play? So we thank everyone that gets involved on all our social media platforms. Actually, I should mention, Jack, someone on Twitter thought that we were 45 years old before they actually saw us on Vision last week.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know if that's a compliment.
I'm absolutely taking that as a compliment. Yeah, because I don't consider myself to be very mature or anything like that at all. So sounding like a mature age person, I'll take that.
I usually get people calling me 16, so I will take it. All right, well, let's move on. So let's see if the fans are worried or if there's nothing to fear. We'll start with Zach on Instagram. Front door was open all day. They exited every stoppage far too easy, chained out by hands, and then found an outlet kick with our defenders 2 steps behind. Our ball entry inside 50 was sloppy. High and long doesn't work for us and hasn't worked since 2011. Boy, do we know that. Mm-hmm. Need the goey back for some X factor in the middle, and hopefully Tom Mitchell still has some footy left for some contested ball. We're going to be that reliant on Goey and Mitchell coming back into this side?
Oh, look, I don't know about calling their names out as the answers to our problems after one game. Certainly, I'd like to have them available for selection at bare minimum, but I think there's some some salient points made there about the Giants looking sharper, and yeah, they were just flick, kick, boom. Now we've switched the footy and we're chaining and we've got acres of space. So yes, please no more of that this year, Collingwood.
Nadine on Instagram, after all the preseason hype, I feel so disappointed that the boys just didn't gel. They burnt Membry a couple of times, but my main issue was no intent and fitness seemed lacking. It was nice to see Membry get his first goal in Collingwood colours on the weekend, but yeah, probably wasn't utilised as we would have liked.
Yeah, I don't know how you saw him mixing it with the other forwards, Jack, by actually being there, but did you sense that he's going to take time to slot in? I didn't think positionally he was out of place.
Not
We
at
just
all.
didn't get the ball inside 50 in a way that allowed him to run and jump at it.
Yeah, I think it was more of a way we were delivering the ball to the forward line as opposed to the forward line. Well, a bit of both, because sometimes I was sitting there just screaming at them. Someone just run somewhere that's
right.
not standing on spot. But I felt like there was a lot of times where we could have gone to Tim Membry, especially in the first half, worked his way into the game, I think, in that sort of late second quarter a little bit maybe. But yeah, I can absolutely see a role for him. It's going to be interesting to see if all three of them can play together, I think, my check. Dan McStay and Tim Membry, because that's going to be the balance, because you'd almost rather, like, there's a bloke everyone seems to have forgotten about, named Mason Cox. Now, what do we do with him if he's available for selection? Does he fit? Do you play all four of them? Like, how does that all work? Do you send one of them back so you can play Mason up forward? Who knows? You're not going to get the answers out of me. My brain's probably still in Sydney somewhere at a pub. But yeah, anyway, we'll get there.
You'll be all right.
Yeah, I'll get there, Nico. I'll be
A long sleep for you tonight, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Isaac on Instagram, I think our preseason has primed for us to start the season slow and finish strong based on the volume and intensity. Keep the faith. Also, can we never play around zero again, or at the least never play the Giants ever again?
Yeah, just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Don't think they will, but all part of the AFL's expansion plans, I'm sure. Yeah, look, I don't know what to make of how the high performance staff, have prepared the players, and how that means we're going to ebb and flow throughout the season. My opinion in let's bank early wins so we're not chasing tail again like last year. I don't care if they've done whatever they've done over the off season and the preseason, Jacko. Just let's not get into a position where we're like, oh, great, now we've almost got one more win than loss, and we're now, that side that's 8th or 9th on the ladder. Awful spot to be in as a supporter later in the year, Nico. So I think let's just hope that the boys have been prepared very well, and once we get back to some normal programming, we'll look okay again.
A couple more to round this segment out. Andrew on Twitter, if we were accurate in the first quarter, this game would have turned out completely different. All of a sudden, there's pressure off us and onto the Giants. If we were accurate, I reckon there would have been a goal in it at the end either way.
Yeah.
Is that optimistic?
But I think so, a little bit. We spoke a little bit about that today. If we just had nailed those chances early, does the game look different? I'm not sure it does, because they just beat us up around the ball and in transition all day. And even when the game was sort of close, it still looked like we had to struggle to get anywhere near a look at 6 points, Nico. So yeah, I'm not too sure about that. I mean, this is Collingwood we're talking about, and you never know. If you stay within 4 goals, you can get this resurgence in the last 20 minutes of every game, which has been unbelievable over the last 2 years. But yeah, on Sunday, I honestly think the Giants would have been close to unbeatable.
Well, this next comment might say that a bit. Victor on Twitter. Ball movement was no good. The Triple M's didn't fire a shot. Horribly outplayed. GWS are a damn good side, and that's the benchmark if we are going to contend, and we were nowhere near it. We'll probably win by 8 goals next week.
Yeah, nice.
So is he not rating Port, or is he just the old Collingwood way where 1 week in, 1 week out will change things up?
Who knows?
Love the chat though early on in the year. Like
Yeah,
round
yeah.
0, 4 players should already be delisted. Craig
Yeah.
McRae's got pressure on him all of a sudden. What is that?
Yeah,
It's round 0. Just
David
relax.
King's already hanging Nick Dacos out to dry. Like you name it, there's big comments coming left, right, and centre. So let's just toe the line. Nice little fishing joke there again, Jacko, and hope that Dan Houston and box office match against Port is something to turn our heads to pretty quickly,
We're going
Nico.
to turn into a fishing podcast in a minute, aren't we? All right, we'll finish with Steve and then on Facebook. No big body support for Nick. We could have tried Bo in at some stoppages to help. Thank you. Also looked very tired and slow after half time. Very few positives, and God help us if Darcy Cameron has a major injury. Touch wood. Move on and hopefully put up a better showing in front of 75,000 at the G.
Is that what
next
they're
week.
tipping? 75 for
Wouldn't surprise me. Saturday night, it's going to be very warm.
hot
Mid
round
30s.
2. Yeah.
So it'll be
Yep.
nice for us all four. Tighten up in the MCC area.
Back to Dacos, I felt on the day, I was incredibly frustrated by our management of him, his injury, cramping, whatever it was. He shouldn't have been out there. I'm happy to be sort of called out on this as being wrong, but I'm watching their guy playing on a bloke named Toby Bedford who did a pretty good job on him.
Yep.
I thought that there was probably a good arm wrestle until Nick hurt himself. Was it late in the second quarter or early in the third?
In the third.
5 into the third.
He could barely walk. It was never. It wasn't even a matter of could he get out of it. He could barely walk, change direction, and which is all well and good to have him out there when we've got the ball. But as soon as we didn't have the ball, Toby Bedford, see you, mate. I'm off. I'm one of the quickest players in the game. I'm going to go find my own footy and hurt you the other way. And he absolutely went and did that. Now, look, Nick, I love the attitude. You love that. I'm out here. I'm going to do my role for the team. I'm just going to do whatever it takes. But somewhere along the line, whether it's the trainers, whether it's the coaches, whether it's somewhere, someone has to go, no, mate, it's round 0. Let's look at this long term. Let's get him off. And if it is just cramp, he couldn't walk. Like you're watching it, he couldn't even walk, and we still got him out there. It was frustrating because at the time, and now it's come out that it was just cramping. But at the time, I'm thinking if this is his foot, we're risking him in a round 0 game in GWS where we're getting flogged by 40 points already. What is I could not understand it.
Yeah, I mean, all the pickle juice in the world didn't seem like it was going to be helping Nick yesterday. I think he cramped on the contest after the trainer had been out to him to deliver some of that pickle juice, but it's just questionable to me. Did Will Hoskin-Elliott get
Not
subbed
injured.
out? Hey?
Not injured.
I thought he had a back problem or
soreness.
something.
Yeah, but okay, not. Is that injured
No,
enough?
but what
for
I'm
you?
asking is,
Sorry,
was
go.
he subbed out and then Nick started cramping, or the
No.
other way around?
No,
Yeah,
Nick
'cause
started
I
cramping
thought
before.
yeah,
Wilbur was still on the
Yes.
park. So that's where, even if Will is, I mean, very tricky circumstances for coaching and the high performance stuff and the physios and the doctors to manage. But yeah, I would have liked to have seen Nick come off. I think just what value is he bringing to the game when it's like he's running around with cement in his legs.
Exactly right. And like, it's not like, you watch it, you've seen it before, whether it's, a Paddy Cripps or a Patrick Dangerfield, that famous game, against Hawthorn where he was on one leg and sent him. You can't send Nick Dacos to full forward. Like the bloke's, 6 foot on the dot and would, by most backs, would probably just get towed thrown to the side in a marking contest. So that's not an option. I could not understand for the life of me. Every time, no matter which way I looked from it, and Craig McRae said their tentativeness was because of what the knock-on effect of what that would do for rotations or how much it could potentially expose everyone else. Well, you're exposing everyone else because when we don't have the ball, you are one less player short on the ground. So I potentially thought maybe there was a bit of, I don't know if Nick Dacos' privilege is the right way to look at it, but it was just like I thought we were too focused on having him out there, and I thought the best player for the player and the best player for the team in that scenario was just get him off.
Well, they did stop the game for him for his cramp, so maybe there is a bit of
As they
privilege.
should.
Exactly right. All right, well, that was Ask Pies Nation. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved, as always, on all our social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Be sure to get involved as well. Subscribe, follow. Let us know how we're going. We like to hear it, good or bad. There we go, bit of a
Or
buzz here.
ugly.
Or ugly. Speaking of fans, it's time to bring one of our favourite segments back to fore, and that is the Guess the Crowd competition. Now, Lukey's given me the pleasure of giving me the name for this week. His name is Alan. He was 2 people off the perfect guess for the crowd. It was about 19,000, I think, at the showgrounds. So he was very good to get that close off.
Yeah, for sure. That's got to be the closest.
I think it might be.
So does that mean if he was 2 people, was it less or more that he was.
You just said 2 off.
Well,
Maybe
if
we
he-
can ask him.
If he got the hole in one,
He's sitting in that chair.
he's coming
sitting
in,
in that
isn't he?
chair.
Yeah.
He's sitting in
Okay.
that chair.
We won't tell him that.
For those that haven't heard us before, the idea is the guess the crowd competition. Simply, if you guess the crowd closest to the pin, then you get a call, which we'll be doing very shortly, assuming it all works. If you get it on the pin, which has not happened before, then that will be you sitting with us, joining us for a segment for the Pies Nation podcast.
Be funny if someone got it and was like, "Oh, nah, that'll not work."
Well, hey, don't put that past us. Anyway, all right, let's get the headphones on. This worked seamlessly in rehearsal, didn't it, boys?
What's that?
Let's guess the crowd. This segment worked perfectly in rehearsal, so I can't imagine that we are not going to have any issues this time around. But let's give Alan a call, and he can be our first Guess the Crowd winner of the year.
Come on, the pie.
There he is.
You river.
He was ready and waiting for it. Alan, welcome to the Pies Nation podcast. Congratulations for being our Guess the Crowd winner for the first time in season
Thanks, Nick.
2025, mate. You must be feeling pretty good to have gotten so close to the pin early.
Hey, unbelievable. A few weeks. And then I was on the Instagram, saw the post come up, and thought, let's just do your research. Go online, have a look. And so I plugged the 19,000 in and saw, like, it's Crispy's 250. So I just banged the 250 on, and just fate had it right there.
That's
My
very
time to
impressive.
shine.
So Crispy pretty much helped you get there. So another shout out to Crispy. We've already done a few today, boys, but fantastic stuff, mate. Well, that's cheered us up because, of course, you would have seen what took place about 24 hours ago when it was full time in Sydney and we weren't able to get the job done in opening round. Give us your summary of what you saw from that first game.
Yeah, look, I thought we started the game okay, right? And like I've been waiting for it all day. I'm up in Brisbane. It's been it rained all day, so I was really looking forward to trying to get on the game and enjoy it. But yeah, just thought after we missed a few of those early opportunities when we had the best of the running, for me the tackling was. I look at the stats. The tackling really showed. Like I think they were at the end of the game 20 tackles more than us. So. Yeah, that's pretty disappointing, I guess, from a contest point of view for the first game of the season. The guys couldn't really, I guess, get a handle on the physical side of the game. But I think you got to hand it to GWS. They did their pre-season, obviously in Sydney, a lot warmer, a lot more humid than what the Pies do down in Melbourne. So I always thought, on that track they were going to find it harder going on the first game of the year. And that proved to be the case, unfortunately.
Thanks for joining us, Alan. Marcus here, and a shout out to you and any other Collingwood supporters in your neck of the woods, obviously, with all of the rainfall and the like. So thank you for taking the time to join us. Just wanted to get your take on Jay Dacos heading to the halfback flank. What do you make of his first performance in Collingwood colours in that spot?
Yeah, no, I thought it was good. Really, I guess put a bit of effort in. Good touches. So look, yeah, first outing, pretty impressed. I thought, if that's the way they're starting the year, then should have a pretty good season ahead.
Alan, thank you so much for coming on, mate. Just Jack here. This time last year, I think we went and left opening round with a fair few excuses as to potentially why it didn't go our way, and we saw how quickly the last season got away from us. Are we concerned that this is potentially season 2024 repeating itself, or you seem a really positive bloke? You've already brought my mood up with the Go Pies off the top. So what do you reckon? Do you reckon we're in strife?
No, look, it's definitely not in strife, right? I think last year, everyone knew coming off that premiership, it definitely took a lot out of the guys to come back later with an older list as well. I think 0-3 was a challenging start. So, look, going down to GWS first week, obviously not a great result, but I think it'll wake the guys up to say, look, everyone goes out of preseason, right, thinking they've trained the house down, they want it more than everybody else. Then you get to the first week and you go, right, well, that's the level that we need to get to week in, week out, preparation-wise. So I think it's a good market. GWS are probably potentially a top 4 team. So hopefully the guys use that as a motivator now to say, right, well, we've really got to lift another 10% and kick our season off into gear.
Yeah, well, look, many of the pundits out there who think they're all experts have tipped GWS to win the flag this year. So Maybe that's a sign of things to come. Maybe we might meet them again later in the grand final. Now, I want to ask you, Alan, because you happen to share the same name as my favourite Collingwood player of all time, Alan Didak. So it's going to give me an excuse to ask about him because...
Didak!
Yes, exactly. See, there's somebody on board. I want you to give me your favourite Alan Didak moment of all time because this man was a freak. Lovely, magical man.
Yeah,
and I just love talking about him whenever I can.
Yeah, look, it was the the shimmy when he used to come through, and I think there was a game he got 2 goals. He got called maybe in the third quarter, and he just those hips just moving, dodging players and just putting them through. Especially like the snap goals. Like, I'd be kicking the footy in the park with my mates, and I'd just be snapping off my right foot, just yelling out Didak and having a ball. So yeah, that's the I guess the moments I'll always remember of him, and yeah, definitely one of my favourites for sure, sharing the same name.
Very good, Alan. Another one from me. Just how is life in Brisbane? Obviously, they've won the flag, and it must be a bit harder to get around the streets with a lot of Brizzy folk getting up in your ear. Do you try to steer clear of it? Do you have any friends who are Brisbane Lions fans? I'm just curious as to what it's like when the premiership's been won in a non-Victorian state.
Yeah, I actually so I've got a few mates and even my sister are Lions supporters. So there's definitely a strong dislike for the Magpies up here.
Good.
So yeah, we keep bear the brunt of it with a smile on our face, right? The funny thing is when we go to play at the Gabba, I'm telling you, the crowd is 50-50. Like there's that much Collingwood supporters up here.
Yep.
So yeah, even on 2023 grand final day going out against Brisbane, you certainly don't feel isolated. It's a good feeling to stick it up them and have a bit of a laugh. So even we didn't make the grand final last year, obviously, but I did host a few people at my place to watch the game that were Brisbane family and friends. So yeah, no, it's just good. I think up in Brisbane, right? It's a rugby league state to spread the message of the great game that we love.
Well, mate, if you only want to travel an hour down the South Coast Freeway or whatever it's called to Gold Coast when we play them up there, it's a 90-10 split our ways, and never mind about 50-50. So that's a great afternoon at the footy. Mate, just one last one from me. We've obviously enjoyed a lot of amazing lifelong memories over the last 2 to 3 years, and we're always interested to get our fans' view on their fan experience at the famous Collingwood wins. Do you have one that sticks out in mind that you've been to or experienced from at home live, sort of outside of the grand final and prelim finals? But do you have one that sticks out in your brain that you'll remember forever?
Yeah, look, probably actually a couple, and I don't take up too much time, but probably the first game I remember, like as a teenager, really getting in, like a big game was 2007 prelim against Geelong. My brother's a Geelong supporter, my dad's a Pies man, but that was Buck's last game, and we lost that by 5. And I was really nervous how are we going to contend, in the years going ahead. But then in 2008, early, we smashed Geelong and got to put one up over the brother, which was great. But apart from that, on TV, like my fiance at the time bought me a surprise package. We were living in Mackay. I went down to the 2014 Anzac Day game. So as a Queenslander going down to Anzac Day, that was a fantastic day. Had the pre-game function. Ben Johnson was talking and a few others. Got to the match, and I'm a very vocal supporter like my dad, giving it out to a few people, and we were down by like 6 goals really early. His grandma's behind me like, don't hear you talking now, Collingwood. So I was like, oh no, I've come all this way, spent all this money, how are we going to go? And obviously the rest of it was a fantastic day, but I was sitting right behind Swanee when he came down in the third quarter, did the bounce down the boundary line and just had that ugly sort of floater down through that acute angle and just erupted. So that is a memory I'll never forget. It was an absolutely brilliant day.
Yeah, you can trust D Swan to save your Anzac Day, that's for sure. He had a phenomenal game that afternoon. Alan, I think you were the perfect guest for us to kick off season 7 of the Guess the Crowd competition. Thank you for joining us, mate, and hopefully we can get you down to Victorious very, very soon and we can enjoy some Pies wins together.
No, it'd be fantastic, and lovely work you guys doing the podcast. So yeah, keep it up.
Thanks, Alan.
Mate.
Thanks for coming on, mate.
Cheers. See you guys.
That was Alan joining us for our very first Guess the Crowd episode. That could be you if you guessed the crowd closer. So as we mentioned before, keep an eye out for Luke's posts in the lead up to each game. And if you guess the crowd closest to the pin, that will be you joining us on Pies Nation podcast. I thought Alan was a very nice way to kick things off.
Oh, mate, the benchmark goes up and up every time we do a Pies Nation Guess the Crowd call, Nico. So, yeah, excellent start to the year from Alan, and, yeah, looking forward to more of those chats for the rest of the year.
Don't worry, we know that you're the benchmark, Jack, because you're here every week. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm certainly not setting any benchmarks today, that's for sure.
All right, gents, before we do wrap up, was there any other notes you wanted to make? I think you wanted to touch on some points potentially about the VFL, Marcus. Obviously, their season's starting up again in a couple of weeks' time. We've had some practice matches in between, but all going okay by reports?
Yeah, March 22, I see, is our first game against the Swans at Vic Park. I wonder if they've expanded the league to more than
No, still the same amount of
47
teams this time.
in the VFL, Nico, national competition. But looking forward to perhaps some new names as well. I'm sure the Surge will be across that this season. Is he agreed?
He's very keen to keep
to renew his
going.
contract with us.
Absolutely. I think
Very
you and Serge are just working out the split, if it's 50-50 or if you want to go a bit higher this year.
Yep, clearly. No, he's very happy Swish is on board as well, I'm sure. So great to have the Surge back and looking forward to a bit more of VFL action perhaps next week as we prepare for round 1. We don't have round 0.
No round 0
VFL, which is good news. So
only for the AFL.
There you go.
All right. Anything else, Jack?
No, mate.
Okay. Well, we're finishing with the game. Now, Jack, you had a lot of comments last week with your lack of Adam Treloar love, putting him at 5 in our blind rankings of Collingwood GWS players.
Yeah, I know that was unpopular. Just not, everyone has their favourites and their non-favourites, and ads just didn't quite push the buttons that make me go, yep, I really enjoy you as a part of my football team. But that's okay. He's killing it at the Bulldogs. Always kills us, by the way, when we play them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Not this year.
Hopefully not. No.
Be on the bench or in the stands.
Oh, he's injured at the moment.
He's injured.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I hope Adam, I hope if you're listening, mate, I hope you're going all the best with your recovery and you're out there kicking it to the opposition before we know it.
All right. Well, now that you're both in, you need to work as a team for this blind ranking. So you know how it works, Marcus? Do you have an idea?
Only because of last week's episode.
Okay. For those that don't know, because we had a lot of comments saying, where was Taylor Adams? Well, I didn't have to name everybody, but I'm going to give you 5 players for a category, and you have to rank them from 1 to 5. But I'm only going to give those players one at a time, and you have to rank them before I give you the next player. And the idea is that you get a ranking that you would have had if you had have known the players all at once rather than one by one. So I thought long and hard about what this week's topic would be. And considering that Dan Houston will be making his debut for us this weekend against the Power, I want you to blindly rank these Collingwood players that wore to number 9.
Oh.
Ready?
Ready to roll.
First player is Jesse White.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking, B1?
I think I am too.
5.
Okay.
I mean, if you can find another one. Oh, there is one other that.
Now you've gone 5.
Yeah, there's one other I've thought
I actually don't care what happens from here.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Okay.
really, really firm about that.
Next is Brian Taylor.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm going to take that.
No.
Before our
Take
time.
his commentary stinks out of the question.
I've got to remove that bias.
Coleman medalist.
Coleman medalist.
Before our time as well. I can't. Silly would never have been lucky enough to see BT.
Leading goal kicker at the club, I imagine.
Multiple times.
He
He was an injury away from a grand final from a premiership team.
Yep.
Be pretty safe at 2.
Yeah,
3.
that 2 was coming to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, there'll be a couple other really good ones in there, but I think 2 or 3 would be safe. So do you just want to go 2?
Yep. Let's lock that in. Otherwise, it's going to be like the old game where we just take 20 minutes to do it. So
We'll be here to 8.
John Noble.
100 games for the club. Wore number 9 for only 1 season.
No,
Or
a couple.
A couple.
Does that factor in how long you wore the number 9?
It does on this podcast.
Last few years at least.
It's important. I'm actually struggling for like jet number 9s. Is there any that we just need to name?
I feel like there's one that we don't. There's one that'll be like a clear number 1 that we've forgotten about. There's also one that's been a part of these games before, which I won't mention just yet, which I think could potentially be in it, who will sit. I think Noble at 3 is a pretty safe bet.
3, Nico, lock it in.
Okay. Next player is Marty Clark.
Oh no, I forgot about him. See, the last one gets out because you don't.
Sorry to John Noble, first of all.
Yeah,
I would say that his career was probably better than Marty's.
Marty Clark.
While at
So-
the
Did
Pies.
love Marty Clark though.
1 spot or 4 spot?
Let's just make it funny. 4.
4.
For
Yeah.
So you've left the 1 spot open. Congratulations to Jack Anthony.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's probably a few changes we make, I reckon, on that, but that's all right. That's
But were there any other big?
Not really.
Because I just think
So
number
Sam
9.
Murray,
yeah, that's who
one.
I was thinking of. I thought you
Phil
might have thrown Sam
Carman,
Murray
who
in
was
there.
well
Carman.
before our time.
Yeah. So the
Um,
number 9 doesn't like absolute household names. Like other than BT, there's not much there. is
So
there?
does Dan Houston become the number 1 player by the end
Without
of
playing
his
a
career?
game. For Collingwood.
Best preseason game I've ever seen.
Yes, I
Number
think he
9
does.
Guernsey.
Yeah.
He'd take
Yeah.
out that list.
Okay, there
Yeah.
you go. So
Apologies to John Noble.
So it was Jack Anthony at
Apologies to
1.
Jesse White. That was gold. I just said.
So Jack Anthony at 1.
5.
Brian Taylor at 2.
I'm not
John
sorry.
Noble at 3.
I feel
Marty Clark
vindicated.
at 4. Jesse White at 5.
Jesse White. Remember, he always used to kick goals from that far pocket at the. Oh, sorry, the Shane Warne pocket going towards the front road.
Yeah.
When he
and
did kick goals.
He would always nail them. He'd just take these marks 45 out on the boundary, and you just go back and nail them. But that's about all I remember about Jesse White's career at Collingwood.
Can I ask, who would you have had? What swaps would you have made there? And
You know
let's see
what?
if we agree.
BT's probably 1. He's a common medalist.
Mm.
And as I said, an injury away from being a
Yeah,
premiership
he's the
player.
most decorated player there for sure.
John Noble's probably my 2.
Yep.
I think considering, again, 1 player away from being a premiership player and a superb servant of our club throughout that time.
100
Raffle the
games.
other 3, honestly.
Yeah.
Jack Anthony had 1 good moment for us when he kicked the goal in the semi-final against Adelaide.
Right in front of me.
So he's probably 3. Marty Clark's 4. I thought he was half serviceable at times. And then, wrap it up.
Marty Clark used to be one of my favourite players.
There you go.
So we got Jesse White, right?
Basically,
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Julian Rowe was
Yeah.
number 9.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting because we had Sam Rowe from the angling club earlier in the
Yes.
episode.
Oh.
I wonder if there's any relation there.
Could be something in that.
Exactly
I
right.
don't know
Stranger
what it
Things.
is, but
Yeah.
strap yourself in. There's
Yeah.
some things coming out everywhere. So I don't know.
All right. Well, that's going to do then for this week's episode.
Pies Nation voodoo.
There will
Yeah.
be a Thursday episode previewing our game against the Power, so keep an eye out for that across our socials and wherever you get your podcasts. But Marcus and Jack, thanks for joining me after round 0.
Good to be back in the seat, and thank you to Alan. I think as we listen back to this episode, we'll just notice there's a bit of a flat tone, and
Yeah.
as soon as we got the guess the crowd call, I just felt a
Yeah,
bit of a
picked us
lift
up,
there.
didn't he?
So
Yeah.
thanks, Alan.
Yeah, shame you weren't in Sydney last night, mate. Could really helped. That would have been awesome. But no, thanks for having me, Nico. Keen as we're going to the footy this week,
All of us together.
us 4. So
And Lukey.
keen as for that on Friday night at the home of football, the Coliseum, the MCG. Come on,
Luke-
fire up.
Lukey's told me he's been practicing his signature, just in case anyone
Yeah, gate 2,
identifies
we'll
him.
have a table outside.
So just fire up the fingers there, Jacko.
Well, until next week then, I've been Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening or watching the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold.